after the Eid break, we are coming back to continue with Surah Luqman, chapter 31 from the Quran. And as usual, Alhamdulillah, Sister Yamina is with us and she'll be leading us in the study. Without further delay, I'll just turn to Sister Yamina. Jazakallah khair.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah, you all had a Eid full of blessings, inshallah. So we're back to Surah Luqman, which is really mainly a chapter that teaches us wisdom. The wisdom that is in living with Tawheed and keeping away from the foolishness of shirk, inshallah. And it's amazing how this surah teaches us very practical ways of living, inshallah, and we'll follow its guidance and be grateful for it, inshallah, and benefit from these precious teachings from our compassionate Rabb. اللهم افتح لنا أبواب حكمتك وانشر علينا رحمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم اجعلنا من المحسنين الحامدين آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين. So this chapter, this Surah Luqman started with Alif Lam Mim. Those are the signs of the wise book, providing guidance and mercy to the muhsinin, who establish worship and pay the poor due, and of the hereafter they are certain. Those are following their Lord's guidance, and those are the prosperous. And there are people who purchase baseless, idle stories to mislead from the path of God without knowledge, and they ridicule it. Those will have a humiliating retribution. And whenever our signs, our messages, our ayats are conveyed unto him, he turns away in his arrogance, as if he had not heard them, as if there were a deafness in his ears. Give him then the tiding of a grievous suffering. That's where we stopped, and today we'll, inshallah, reflect on ayat 8 to 11, inshallah. So ayat 8, استعيذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لهم جنات النعيم خالدين فيها وعد الله حقا وهو العزيز الحكيم. خلق السماوات بغير عمد ترونها وألقى في الأرض رواسي أن تميد بكم وبث فيها من كل دابة وأنزلنا من السماء ماء فأنبتنا فيها من كل زوج كريم. هذا خلق الله فأروني ماذا خلق الذين من دونه بل الظالمون في ضلال مبين. For those who believe and work righteous deeds, there will be gardens of constant, perpetual blessings, Jannatul Na'im, to abide therein in accordance with God's true promise, for He alone is Almighty, truly wise. He it is who has created the skies without any supports that you could see, and has placed firm mountains upon the earth, lest it shakes with you. And He has caused all kinds of living creatures to multiply thereon. And we send down water from the skies, and thus we cause every noble kind of life to grow on earth. All this is God's creation. Show me then what others than God, may have created. Nay, but the evildoers are obviously lost in error. So since we haven't met last week, it's been 2 weeks, let's remind ourselves very shortly what we've been talking about since the beginning. So far we saw how the Quran is a source of wisdom, a source of hikmah. For whom? For the muhsinin. It is a source of hikmah anyways. However, who benefits from that hikmah. Who actually, that hikmah is accessible to whom? To the muhsins. And the muhsins are those who live in the presence of their Rabb, those who do not forget that their existence is totally, completely, wholly dependent on the creativity and the sustaining of their Rabb. So this Quranic wisdom, this hikmah, provides the muhsins with guidance to rahmah, grace and mercy in everything, everywhere, here and now and forever. So those are the signs of the wise book, providing guidance and mercy to the muhsins. And remember that the muhsins are also described in the fourth ayah as those who establish worship, constant worship, and pay the poor due, the zakat, and of the hereafter, they are really certain. They have no doubt. And after the description of the muhsinin, who are the prosperous, we are told, came the description of the people who are doomed to humiliating retributions. Those mindless people who, we're told in Ayah 7, purchase baseless, idle stories to mislead from the path of God without any knowledge, and they ridicule the path of God. Those will have a humiliating retribution, we're told, and in Ayah 7, says, whenever our signs, our ayat are conveyed unto him, he turns away in his arrogance as if he had not heard them, as if there were a deafness in his ears. Give him then the tidings of a grievous suffering. And so we concluded that the seed of suffering and humiliation is the following of this idle, was it called in the idle, baseless stories, talk, lahu al-hadith, which refers, we said, to anything that diverts us from our true purpose. It's not only entertainment on out there or something, including, that is included, but anything that diverts us from our true purpose in life, which is ubudiyah, which is to know and love and worship our Rabb, and makes anything that makes us forget who we are as ibadullah, servants of God destined for eternal life, is lahu al-hadith. And we also reflected on how central belief in the hereafter is in the teachings of the Quran. The believers in Surah Al-Baqarah and the muhsins in this surah, in Surah Luqman, are all described as people who have certainty of akhirah. They are certain of the life to come. And this means that they are aware that our life on earth is temporary. They don't forget this. I mean, we all know this, but we're not aware of this. We don't live our life with that consciousness, but they do. And they're also aware that this life, this temporary life on this earth, is only a very small fraction of human existence. We're not here forever. This is, we came from somewhere else and we're going to somewhere else. We're here just for a temporary journey, as the hadith tells us. And it is through the impermanence of this world that we're made to realize our need for eternity and to appreciate and seek that eternity. And we are prepared in this impermanent life for eternal life, for the hereafter. And these people, the muhsins, are aware of this. So when they are here, they are not drowned. They don't sink in this life. They float. It's like a how do you call it? Ships. A ship uses the water to float on it. They travel through life and make the best of it for the sake of akhirah. Everything in their life, their everyday, is for the sake of the hereafter. But when we forget the hereafter, we live in this life for this life, but this life is impermanent. There will be nothing on the other side if we live only for this life. And we also reflected on how we're taught in the Quran that we were sent here solely for the purpose of knowing and worshiping God, our eternal Rabb only. We have no other purpose. If we think we have any other purpose, then we have to pause and stop and question it. And we need to find the relationship between that desire or those the potential, the abilities that we have been gifted with to make them means for that ultimate purpose, which is to know and worship God and be grateful to Him, which is also the essence of worship, is to be grateful to God. And so this world is like a nursery, as we taught in the Hadith. It's like a nursery where we cultivate the crops for the hereafter. How do we cultivate these crops? Through knowledge of God, through belief, through surrender and trusting God and living without awareness, inshallah. And accordingly, our certainty in the hereafter transform who we are here and now, and it transforms how we perceive and interact with the world here and now. So this certainty in the hereafter is very important for now, for here, because it's going to totally transform how we live our life, how we perceive and view life and ourselves, and the meaning and the purpose of all creation. And so turning away from the ayat in ayah 7, from the signs of God in arrogance, is something we said that we all could do at different degrees. It's not only some people out there, it could be any one of us. When we don't surrender to God, when we don't follow His guidance, we are to some degree or other, depending on our intention, or actually the lack of intention, because remember that belief in God requires intention. It is intentional, it's a choice. When we are not making that choice, by default, we are choosing something else, although we don't intend to choose not to follow guidance. And when we are not following guidance, we are, in a sense, in a state of arrogance, in that forgetfulness, in that ghafla, in that heedlessness. And because we forget that we are totally dependent on the grace of our Rabb, and we live, when we are in a state of ghafla, we have this, we imagine ourselves that we are self-sufficient to a certain degree, and to that degree there is arrogance and self-delusion. And this is the self-delusion that we think, or we imagine, we fancy that we know how to live our life, we know what's good for us, we know what our needs are and how to take care of them, and what's not good for us. And we do the same for the people around us, the people especially that we are responsible for. We encourage, for instance, our children to prepare for the worldly life in the best way, and we spend lots of effort, lots of time on that. And if we stop and look at it in perspective, you see how little we worry about the life to come. At most, yes, we may worry about the daily rituals, about do they pray and do they fast? But how about the states of our hearts and their hearts, our beliefs and convictions? Are we certain that this life is only a passing enjoyment, and what counts is only the life to come in Akhirah? Are we living accordingly? Are the people we love and care for, are they living accordingly? No. We may not be able to change their conviction, but at least we pray for it. We do the best we could to help them in that path. And if we don't, if we're putting much of our effort for this daily life, for this temporary life, then this amounts to the self-delusion that we are not aware of our need for divine guidance, because in that way of living in heedlessness, it's like we don't need divine guidance because it seems to us like we know where to go, what to do, and everything. And so whenever we're not actually heeding, we're not listening to the divine message, we're not following the guidance of the Quran, then we are in some sense turning a deaf ear to it, even if it is unintentional, again, because that's not an excuse, because Iman is supposed to be intentional. So we need to remind ourselves, inshallah, and remind each other to live intentionally, to make that choice to surrender to God and follow to the best of our ability the guidance of the Quran. And when we can't, this is what we say in the 5 daily prayers in the Fatiha. We seek your help, so we ask help from our Rabb because we realize how weak we are, how forgetful we are. And so when in that state of heedlessness, we also have the illusion that we need things themselves. This is very, very important, because we will see this in Surah Luqman. This is going to be emphasized. Like, why are we so busy in life? Are we spending all our energy and our effort and time and resources in acquiring the resources of this life? Because we have the illusion that we need things themselves for themselves. Not as signs, not as gifts, but most of the time, even when we say it's a blessing, alhamdulillah, but if we don't have it, then we're in a state of anxiety and fear. Because we have this illusion that things themselves fulfill our needs. And so we feel the need to work hard to acquire them. And even when we say, God gave me this and that, ultimately, our attachment, our gratitude, our heart is really attached and grateful to the things themselves, not to the bestower of the blessings of the things, not to the provider. And this opens the door to shirk. Now in ayat 8 and 9, today, we're back to the people of Jannah, alhamdulillah. But actually, you can see, although I said alhamdulillah, I laughed because I remember that we need ayat like 6 and 7, because otherwise I could spend all my life in delusion and no one would attract my attention to what I'm deluding myself with. So those ayat are as much rahmah, as much a blessing and grace and compassion and mercy as the verses, the ayat that gives us the good news of paradise, inshallah. So in ayah 8, it says, for those who believe and work righteous deeds, there will be gardens of constant, perpetual blessings, na'im. This na'im has this constancy in it. And in ayah 9, to abide therein. So those who believe and work righteous deeds, they will abide in those gardens of blessings in accordance with God's true promise. So it is God's promise, it is God's true promise, haqq, that they will be there, khaliduna fiha. For He alone. Why? Why is this promise true? Because He is Azizun Hakim. He alone is almighty, truly wise. There, language-wise, the commentators on the Quran have pointed to some nice, subtle indications, some ayat, because the language itself, remember, is an ayah. So when referring to suffering in the previous ayah, in ayah 7, this used. It was suddenly, it was like they, the people, there are people who purchase baseless idol stories to mislead from the path of God, and whenever our ayat are conveyed onto him, he turns away in his arrogance, which is an interesting turn. And so, for instance, Fakhruddin Razi, he says that the fact that the singular was used when the subject was suffering, and the plural is used when talking about paradise, is an indication to how comprehensive God's mercy is. And also the suffering is indefinite, adab, whereas the gardens, they are definite because they are made definite in Jannatun Na'im. We know they are gardens of constant blessings. And so this way, because the paradise is described, it makes it closer to the heart, and it makes the heart rejoice and find peace and long for that paradise, because it's something that you can almost imagine, although you can't know exactly what it is, but it has more, there are more description, it's more specified. And also,
I mean, I couldn't fully follow that because it says painful suffering, so that's a description also, and this is
yeah, but it leaves it still, yes, it is painful, but it leaves it indefinite because it's an adjective, whereas in the Jannah, for the gardens, it's an idafa. An idafa makes something definite.
Okay, that's a very, I just had a point for. Okay, thank you.
I think what's the point here is that even the language points to, is encouraging and is reflecting God's mercy, and that God's mercy overcomes his wrath and encompasses everything. So the goal in the purpose in telling us about the painful suffering is not that it's not a threatening, but it is a warning, a reminder, out of concern, out of love, like don't follow that path. This is where you will end up. But when it comes to paradise, it's more than just this is where you will end up. There is more. It's like an encouragement, just like there is a warning and a discouragement not to go to the path that leads to hell and suffering. There is an encouragement and embellishment of paradise to push us and urge us and encourage us to follow that path, because it's the path that the human heart longs for. That's how we've been created. So it gives peace and joy to the human heart to see that. And that's why also in the suffering, it just says, okay, there will be suffering, but it doesn't say whether it's forever or not. It just left open. But when it came to the gardens, then it says khalidina fiha, like it's explicitly mentioned that people will remain there forever. And that's also an indication to mercy and compassion, inshallah. And when it says to abide therein in accordance with God's true promise. So God's promise of eternal paradise is true. Why? Because He alone is almighty and wise. If He is almighty, it means He's the only source of power and control. If He says it, He can do it. There is no reason why He cannot fulfill it or He won't fulfill it. And He is wise. He deals with His servants with wisdom, not only with compassion, but wisdom, not haphazardly, like you will be dealt punishment and paradise and reward haphazardly. It's not how it works. Whoever sows seeds of goodness in this world will reap eternal fruits of paradise in the next. There is a connection between our life in this world and in the next, because this world exists of the creation, which is revealed to us in the guidance of the Quran. And that's why, so, okay, but how do we know that He indeed is almighty and wise? How do we know that what Ayah 9 is, how do we confirm its truth? Then the answer is in the next Ayah, which is Ayah 10, which is, it is God, it is who has created the skies without any supports that you can see, and has placed firm mountains upon the earth so that it does not shake with you. And He has caused all kinds of living creatures to multiply thereon on earth. And we, meaning God, sends down water from the skies, and thus we cause every noble life to grow on earth. And in this ayah, in Ayah 10, the evidence that God is almighty and wise is in His process of creation, in the way He creates. We're referred to the creation, to what we can see and witness and live and perceive. Because as we've learned from the Quran so far, that's how we confirm the truth of the Quran's message. This is something that we've been repeating, and that's what makes the Quran's message so amazing, is that it is part of the message in the creation. We cannot disconnect the message of the Quran with the message of the creation, the signs in creation. That's why we've seen how the Quran repeatedly tells us that everything in creation is a sign, is a message from God, bearing a message from God, taking us, indicating Him, therefore indicating Him, and guiding us back to Him, to His compassion, to His divine names, beautiful divine names, and Asma al-Husna. And also, those who have already confirmed the truth of the Quran, they know the truth of God's promise, and they live accordingly. They are the muhsins. The muhsins live in the presence of their Rabb, because everything that's going on in their life, including their breathing, is an indication, a sign, a message from their Rabb, a message that reflects rububiyyah or rububiyyah activity. So if we want to be muhsins, if we want to live with ihsan in the presence, if we want to live in the presence of our Rabb, if we want to live with the certainty of akhirah, then we need to confirm the truth of God's message through His creation. We need to make the shahada, witness the truth of God's message, which is really about affirming Tawheed, affirming the divine unity in the creation. meaning that we will witness and see and confirm and be certain that there is only one source of goodness, one source of perfection, one source of beauty, one source of power, of will, of control. Everything else points to it, reflects it. It is not an obstacle to it. On the contrary, it talks about it. It is a sign reflecting the divine names, the divine unity. And this situation, maybe you remember, is very similar to what we saw in the first ayat of Surah Al-Ra'd, which is Surah 13. In Surah Al-Ra'd, it was the two first surahs where Alif Lam Mim Ra, those are the ayat, the signs of the book. And what your Rabb has sent down to you is the truth. Again, the same word, haqq. Yet most people do not believe. And immediately in the next ayah it says, God is He who has raised up the heavens without any support that you can see, and then He has established Himself on the throne, and He has made the sun and the moon subservient to His law, each running its course for a term set by Him. He regulates all that exists. He makes the ayat clear so that you will be certain of meeting your Rabb. So actually when you read the first and second ayat of Surah Al-Ra'd, it looks like they are unrelated. Like suddenly the subject changed, as if the Quran was talking about the ayat of the book being the truth, and then suddenly starts talking about the creation. However, from the way we learned to look at the Quran and listen to its guidance rather than trying to explain it. We read the first ayah and then we say, how do we know that what God has sent down is the truth? We don't take anything for granted because we don't know, because we are reading in order to confirm, to make tasdeeq. We don't say we're Muslims, we believe in the Quran, it must be true. Yes, it's good to start with that husn al-dhan, with that open heart, very good, but it can't be the end, it's only the beginning. And so we do listen to the Quran, and then when it says the ayat of this book were sent to you that were sent to you are the truth, we say, how is it, how do we know that it's the truth? And then because from the second ayah we understand, because we can verify and confirm the truth of the message sent through the ayat in the world to which the divine message, the divine revelation, the Quranic ayat refer to. When they tell us, look, reflect, check, you will see that these Quranic message is the truth. And that it is truly God who has raised up the heavens without any support that you can see. Ila akhirih, carry on, the second ayah. Then it fits perfectly, they are totally related, it's full of hikmah, it's just amazing and beautiful, alhamdulillah. In this second ayah of Surah Al-Ra'd, it starts with, it is God who has raised up the heavens without any support, just like in ayah 10 of Surah Luqman. And we're told in Surah Al-Ra'd that the clear ayat are in the heavens and the skies. Actually, samawat means anything that is lifted up, that is up there, being raised without visible support, and the sun and the moon following their course according to a well-defined order. And we're told that God makes the ayat clear, which means that the creation is clearly ayat, is clearly indicating, it's created in a way that it indicates and confirms the truth in the verbal ayah. We told something in the verbal ayah here, the second ayah of Surah Al-Ra'd, and if we go out and actually look, which we need to do, otherwise we would never have truly read and confirmed and followed the guidance of this ayah. And that's what we talked about at that time when we were reflecting on Surah Al-Ra'd. Then we come back and say, yes, Sadaqallahu Azim, this is truly whatever God is teaching me here, is telling me here, is truly the truth. Subhanallah. I didn't know the purpose of the creation of the heavens and the earth, but now at least I have some clues about it. And then I see that the way things are created provides us with hints, with indications to go back and confirm the Quranic message. And then we see that the Quranic message, even each word, how the words are chosen, how they are ordered, also provides us with hints, with signs and guidance on how to find out that the creation of the heavens without support, for instance in this case, are indeed clear signs, clear ayat, meaning clearly reflecting the rububiyyah activities, clearly talking about God, clearly glorifying His names, making tasbih. And we also mentioned that often the Quran is not specific when it comes to matters related to the universe, to how things work in nature, because the Quran's purpose is guidance. It is guidance to God, guidance to Akhirah, guidance to teach us the purpose of our life and the purpose of the whole creation. And it is guidance to everyone who seeks its guidance, not only the learned one or the scientist. So they doesn't speak to people who have special knowledge, because that's not the purpose. And so this way, all people, whatever the level of understanding, can still get their share of guidance without being alienated. And also because the purpose of the Quran is to guide us to haqq, it is not to teach us the details of creation as in science, for instance. But those of us who are curious, they can go ahead and search for themselves. But even those who are intrigued and go and search in the universe, if they go and search the universe and their intention is to follow the guidance of the Quran, then the more they uncover the mysteries, the laws of creation, the more they will be amazed at the beautiful names reflected there. They will be able to see the rububiyyah more and more, and the power and the wisdom more and more. So it's not enough to just go and search and study the universe. It is important to study the universe following the guidance of the Quran, meaning we don't study the universe in the way science does, for instance, because the Quran speaks of the universe and natural phenomena in order to make God known to us as our Rabb, as our generous and compassionate host with His beautiful names. It is not to study things for themselves in themselves, or to find some kind of technology or something. It doesn't mean that we won't find it. And if we find it, we will again find it as an expression of rububiyyah, as a blessing, as a gift from our Rabb. So it's not what we do, but how we do it, with what intention, how we approach the world around us, that matters. So the Quran speaks of the world in order to make to us our Creator known to us. It does not talk about the world for itself. That's not the purpose of the Quran. And it is the same in this 10th ayah of Surah Luqman, when in this ayah we are again told that the heavens are raised without support that we can see. It tells us so in order to show us how this fact, the fact that the heavens are raised without support that we can see, is an ayah, an indication to an all-encompassing universal tadbir, disposal, power, knowledge, etc., that transcends the heavens themselves, that transcends the universe itself. And this is hikmah. And it does not specify what is meant exactly by samawat. Literally, I said it means that which is above. It does not say exactly what is it that is above. Something above, it doesn't matter. What matters is whatever you find there is that it is an ayah. And this way it leaves the door open to many possibilities, all of which could be correct. And this way also the Quranic ayah, in this case Luqman ayah 10, functions truly as a sign, as an ayah, an indication to everyone at every level, at all time. So it is a rahmah for the majority of people, the majority of us, who may not be scholars or scientists, and they don't need to be so in order to be amazed at the sky. We don't need to know the details of the working of the creation to be amazed at the skies and the bodies around above us in space, including the sun and the moon, and how they all obviously follow some order, some cosmic order. Of course, the more we know, the more we are likely to be amazed if our intention is to surrender. Because otherwise, if that's not our intention, we can always find a way around it. So anyone with no intention to deny, with the intention, without arrogance, anyone who is humble, anyone who is aware that his life is totally dependent on another, anyone who is aware that he cannot even control his own breathing, when he reflects and looks around at the heavens and the skies and the bodies in the skies and how everything is supported without anything that we can see, they will be amazed, and they would conclude that such order indicates an order, an all-encompassing rububiyyah, an all-encompassing knowledge and power and will. And those who have knowledge of the working of the celestial bodies or astronomy and all these things, then this Quranic ayah encourages them to uncover the creational ayat and deciphers the meaning that they indicate beyond themselves. And in the second part, we told about the rain. And the rain is something that is easier to see and reflect on without any specialized knowledge anyways. After the skies without any support that you can see, it says, and we send down water from the skies, and thus we cause every noble kind of life to grow on earth. And you find often people who work like farmers and people who cultivate and witness the miracle of life growing from earth, from lifeless seeds. Often they can be very humble and very close to their creator, their Rabb. Interestingly, this ayah starts with, He it is who has created the skies without any support that you can see, and He has placed firm mountains upon the earth so that it does not shake with you, and He has caused all kinds of living creatures to multiply thereon, And then suddenly it says, and we, still God speaking, send down water from the skies, talking about the rain. Usually this has been understood as this change of, how do you call it? Personal pronouns, that the language, human language, cannot limit the divine, cannot, when we say he, it's only a figurative way of speaking because of the limitedness of our language. That's why it goes from he to we to I, so that we don't start imagining having an image, anthropomorphizing God. At the same time, together with this, point, which is often pointed out in commentaries on the Quran, I think I'd add that there is also wisdom in the change. The wisdom is that the change is appearing at this particular place. So there is wisdom within wisdom. I'm adding something. Because we don't have direct access to the creation of the mountains, even though if you study geology, it's possible to learn how right now the mountains are being set and are keeping the earth from shaking and things like that. But still, it's not like the rain. The rain, we see it directly falling. And that's why when describing or talking about some creation that we cannot witness or see directly, then the subject pronoun, I don't know how you say. Do you say absent in English? Like in Arabic, you say al-ghaib. When you're talking about someone who is not here, he's absent, then you use he. But third person, yeah, but third person doesn't give that sense of al-ghaib, the one who is not here, who is absent, like you only can see him through his creation. But in the rain it says we, because right now it's raining actually right now outside. I can just go outside and see and reflect and prostrate in awe as at the process of water falling. And it, as it says in other verses in the Quran, it falls like drop by drop. It doesn't fall like in buckets of water. Subhanallah, just amazing. Any way you think about rain is just amazing. And the fact that with water everything is given life, that all living beings are mostly made of water, is also just amazing. Yes, sister?
And the other thing is, maybe many of you already know, the fact that the raindrops do not accelerate as they come in. Because if you threw a rock from a very high place down, it will speed up as it comes down.
Yeah, it's free fall.
Yeah, so, but the rain is coming all the way from the clouds and it doesn't accelerate. There's a way in which the shape of the raindrop fits with a pattern in nature, where there's friction and then surface area and so on. With all that, its speed gets balanced, and it doesn't speed up. Otherwise, if it just sped up like any other object,
it would be very harmful.
It would run through us. I mean, it would just pierce through our bodies. So that's also.
That's why they say angels, like among the Muslims, they say each drop has an angel holding it, and there is truth in that.
That each raindrop is brought down by an angel.
Yeah.
So highlighting that this is purposeful.
Subhanallah. There is a profound truth in
like the snowflakes. I mean, it's a different sign. The snowflakes, a different sign.
Yeah, the same with snowflakes. That's true. That's why it says water. Interesting. So that all of them are included. Doesn't say rain. Subhanallah. And if we truly reflect in this way, reflect on the ayat, on the signs in the creation, we reflect on the creation as signs to their creator, to their makers, and our hearts are satisfied with what we see, then we will confirm Ayah 11, which says, all this is God's creation. Show me then what others than He may have created. Nay, but the evildoers are obviously lost in error. And this is the evildoers, actually, Zalimun, the unjust, really, are lost in error. So here, these other than God, show me what others than He may have created, are all or any being whom we have set up as our deities, in which, like, we don't worship any deity with God. No, in the sense that we regard them as possessing some power to influence our lives, to provide us with comfort, to help us, to bring us health, whatever. Anything that we perceive without being aware of its connection to its creator. And so we see them in themselves as the source of the blessings that we're getting through them. It's like God gives life through water, but if I'm not aware of that, my attachment to water in itself would be a kind of deifying it, and I would be scared of losing it. And so Zalimun refers to those who ascribe powers, to ascribe shirk to beings or things other than God. And I want us to stop here and pause and think how often we do this. How often do we live with the awareness that every single thing, every single being, every single breath is in God's control and only is in His power and will? If we don't, whenever we don't, then we are ascribing power to something else. Do we perceive things as pointing out beyond themselves to a transcendental power and will? Since obviously they cannot create anything because they themselves are being created here and now, as we are told repeatedly in the Quran. If not, then we are setting these things as partners in God's creation. Unknowingly, unintentionally, doesn't matter. Very few people will intentionally say yes, God has partners in His power. It's all what we do in that state of ghafla, in that state of heedlessness. That's why we warned against heedlessness, against ghafla. And when we are in that state of ghafla, we do prostrate to those things, in fear, in anticipation, in hope. We seek their help. Prostration here in a figurative sense. And this, if you think about it, is utter foolishness. We do live our life this way. Most of our fears and anxieties source is this kind of foolishness, let's say, heedlessness, unawareness. And this is, foolishness is the exact opposite of hikmah. And this is shirk. So you can see how foolishness is shirk, is from shirk, and hikmah is from tawheed. Living with tawheed, not only claiming it. Inshallah, the more we confirm it, the more we witness it, the more we strive to surrender and live with it, the more we will be taught hikmah, inshallah. And when we are taught hikmah, then we will see the hikmah in the Quran, and it becomes a source of guidance and rahmah to us. We will see that everything around us, all the ayat in the universe, even our sickness, even our difficult times, are guidance and rahmah, inshallah. Because we will live more and more in ihsan, inshallah. So consciously, we all admit that God alone is the creator, and yet practically we look at our lives and we prioritize so many other things in our life before akhirah, before we're so busy, we have very important things to do before that. Subhanallah. And as we talked about it when we talked about ubudiyah, it's not about let's not eat, let's go and pray. No, we will eat as a form of worship. The solution is not to let's reduce time for eating, or let's eat less so we have more time for worship. No. Eat with consciousness. Seek your rizq and your providence with that consciousness that you are seeking it from the provider. So everything will be transformed into ibadah, and your life will be a life of ubudiyah. Inshallah. So I invite us to all pause and reflect on our life and our choices, and how, because when we pause and we reflect, we're more likely to actually make conscious choices, because many of our life choices are not conscious. They are made by default, or the choice itself is conscious, but it is defined by unconscious beliefs and assumptions about who we are and what life is. So let's us stop and see and reflect and realize that anything that has no power to create and no share whatever in the creation of anything in the earth and in the heavens does not deserve to be our life purpose in itself for itself. It cannot be our life purpose. Like, why should we prostrate before these goals that we made for ourselves in life and adore them? And remember, in the terminology of the Quran, they say laha akifun. To be akifun to something, it means to be very busy with it, to spend all your time with it. So adoring and worshipping things as though they were deities doesn't mean that we put a statue and prostrate to it. No, it means all my life is arranged around that purpose. And remember, these things that we care so much about, that we spend all our life sometimes to secure, to possess, they have no power with which they could fulfill our needs or requirements. And that's why often after we actually secure them, after a while, we look for something else. So Let's make istighfar and stay away from shirk, inshallah, consciously, and remain grateful to our Rabb alone. That is hikmah, as we will be told in the next ayah. The hikmah that is taught to Luqman is to be grateful to God alone. And when we are grateful to God alone, that is practicing Tawheed. You say, how do I practice my Tawheed in my daily life? Be grateful to God alone. The more I'm grateful to God alone, the shirk will take care of itself. I'm not going to be busy with, is this shirk or not? How do I get rid of shirk? That's not the solution. The solution is be grateful for every single thing you are grateful for to God alone. Subhanallah. It's just beautiful. So next week, inshallah, we'll talk about this, the hikmah of being grateful to God alone, how it is related to Tawheed, and how the next ayah, ayah 13, is Luqman telling his son to keep away from shirk, because shirk is such an injustice. Inshallah.
Dr. Yamina, I just wanted to make a point when we were discussing about rain.
Yes.
You know, the shape of the drop and all that is pear-shaped so that it has the least resistance, doesn't hurt you, otherwise it will be like a bullet. You know, I noticed I was attending some other halqas and I found out that very consistently in Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses ma, you know, for rain. Yes. And matar, whenever that rain is a kind of a azab.
That's true.
So some linguistic point which I thought was very beautiful.
We did mention that when we talked about it in Surah Al-Ra'd, actually. I think we did.
We did. Yeah. But this is very
yes.
you know, reflective, this point here that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, even the scientifically in verse number 10, that the samawat, you know, whatever you want to consider it, layers, 7 layers, or doesn't have any pillars, because one of the verses, I think it's in Surah Anbiya, verse number 30, it says that first samawat and earth was one, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala split it. Yes. So the thing is this, I was just thinking about it, that the sky or the samawat doesn't need any pillars, while the earth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had to put the mountains to make it stable, and the huge thing which is much huge than the earth, which is samawat, and so many layers, 7 layers, doesn't need any, is without a pillar.
Yeah,
so
that's very interesting. Especially not only that it is like huge, like incomparably, you can't even compare them. The earth is so tiny compared to the rest of the space. But also space doesn't, and I mean, it's void and emptiness, so it's like more likely to shake, we would think, than something solid in our very limited perception. But subhanallah, it's not.
And the most fascinating thing is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala most of the time uses bunyana, you know, when he talks about as if it's a fabric. And Einstein also says that space is like a fabric. And he always mentioned the, you know, when he made the heavens, he uses the word bunyana, like a, you know, fabric.
It's a building which points to will. It's not there haphazardly. It's there with a purpose. It reflects a purpose and will and wisdom. Subhanallah. Yes, thank you for sharing. Thank you. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين آمين 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 يا أرحم الراحمين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Hi, Sister Yamina. I had also a comment for verse 11 when it says, all this is God's creation. Show me then what others than God, than He, may have created. And for when I was younger, I really didn't understand this verse. What does that mean? To show things that are created by other gods, other beings. Because how do we know this creation belongs to God in the first place? And then tell other people, okay, if you think there's another God, show me what they created. But actually, it is very, very profound, because it's saying, can you look at the creation? Can you really attribute this creation, this world, to someone other than the only one who knows everything and who's all powerful? Can you attribute any piece in this world, a cell or a stone, to anything other than this one being? And we were having a conversation with a student, not in my class actually. The issue came up, and then I said these things cannot be happening by chance according to Islamic Quranic view. And one of my students he said, well, it's not completely by chance. It's survival. I said, is survival something that's thinking? Is that something that can plan? Body parts, and it's very sophisticated, very well planned. Is survival something like that? And he posed. I think maybe he never thought about it. He just said, well, survival urge makes things happen. But when he thought about it, I could see in his face that he was a little puzzled. It wasn't. I didn't have enough time in my class. It wasn't the main topic for the day, so I couldn't engage him more. But it was so interesting that, to me, it's an example of this verse where it says, show me then what others than God may have created, meaning show me an explanation of this complex, sophisticated, well-ordered universe and its pieces that can be explained by anything other than by somebody who knows what he's doing, and somebody who has this comprehensive knowledge, so he can connect the pieces together, make you in such a way that you can live in this world. And just throwing out words, blind, survival skills and so on, it just really doesn't fit the bill for anybody who sits and poses. And it's interesting, you really called us to pose today. And that pose is what the Quran is inviting us. If you just pose, then you will see.
Mm-hmm. And even when we are listening to each other, even if I'm listening to you and understand, and even if I accept what you said and I understand it and I fully agree, unless I pause and actually experience it in my life and feel it in my heart, and not only once or twice, but every day, it's not going to transform my life. It's the heart is that the engine that will remember the gardens of blessings are for those who believe and do good work, good deeds. And those good deeds are good deeds only as much as we believe. And subhanAllah, so the heart will move us into that path of living with ihsan, with beauty, with good deeds, to the extent that we internalize these beautiful messages in the ayat of the Quran, and as we are told in this ayat of the Quran, in the creation. So inshallah, let's take time to reflect and prostrate in awe before our Rabb, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you. Jazakallah khair. And thank you for joining us tonight. Inshallah, see you all next week.
Inshallah. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah khair.